Thank you so much for your time today. We're really happy to have you on board for this interview. So, let us begin this interview by, talking about the big news that is the Series C funding itself. So could you tell us a bit more on, you've picked up $100 million at a 2 billion valuation. So, I mean, what was the whole strategy behind this, and what do you intend to do with the investment?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is that machine learning is becoming the default way of building technology. If you look at the best-in-class companies, when they build a new feature, a new product, a new workflow, they start with machine learning now. And we've been lucky at Hugging Face to become kind of like the most used platform to do that, right? Like more than 10,000 companies are using us now to build these features, to find pre-trained models. More than 100,000 pre-trained models have been hosted on the Hugging Face platform now. More than 10,000 data sets have been hosted on the platform. But machine learning has the potential to have kind of like a positive impact today, and it's already having positive impacts in my opinion, in things like improving search for better knowledge sharing, improving translation to remove some of the language barriers that we see, improving kind of like moderation that is much needed, for example, for social platforms. But there are many more kind of like challenges to be solved and limitations for machine learning. Things like biases, privacy, the fact that it's concentrated in the hands of a few players that creates risks for like a monopoly, power concentration, and things like that. So we basically raised 100 million with Sequoia, Co2, and our existing investors, Lux Capital Addition, to double down on what we've been doing, right, on our mission to democratize good machine learning, and double down on our open and collaborative approach, right? So like doing that with the community, working on today's challenges for machine learning with the community, doubling down on our open source that's been like widely used. So that's why we raised this round of funding.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Clement. And ever since the company started, I mean, ever since you got into the NLP phase, not per se much with the chatbot, but ever since you've become the Hugging Face that the world knows and loves right now, you've been highly invested in open sourcing, machine learning. You have a huge focus on collaboration over anything else. Why is that?
Because we believe some of the challenges that I talked about, right? Biases challenges, privacy challenges, dual use. Some of these challenges, they won't be solved by just one company. They won't be solved just by Hugging Face. They are going to be solved by the whole community coming together from different sides of the world, from different kind of like economic situations, from different cultural backgrounds. So we believe to make machine learning a positive force in the world, we need the whole community to contribute with us. So that's why we've taken this approach, this open and collaborative approach for machine learning.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm just sort of curiosity here. Now, we have companies like OpenAI who try to, address ethical issues or biases issues by keeping it within, offering products first to a very closed focus group and then perhaps giving it to the masses. But, you believe in the exact opposite of that. So how are you exactly addressing these challenges?
So first, there are different approaches today in the field. overall, I think it's very positive to see like different approaches in the world, and it contributes to more popularization of machine learning, more conversation, more thinking around it. For us, when you look at the challenge of machine learning in a dynamic way, you know, not just today, but in the future, and when you look at these topics from value, we have part of the team, someone called Margaret Mitchell. Dr. Margaret Mitchell was like the co-founder and co-lead at the ML ethics team. And she likes to use this formulation of value inspired development. So if you look at your values and how to kind of like inspire your machine learning building, you realize that most of the time accountability is more important than control, in the sense that when you build openly, collaboratively, you can create accountability because people can see what you're doing, they can give feedback, they can contribute. That's something we've been seeing, for example, with Big Science, which is probably the most collaborative and biggest project in machine learning, right? With 1,000 researchers, 200 organizations contributing to the training of a machine learning model, completely in the open, right? So you've seen a few weeks ago the training start. You can even follow on Twitter the progress of the training of what is going to be the largest language model that is going to be open sourced when the training is going to be finished. I think it's supposed to be in months. What you're seeing is that you create accountability for people, and this is more important than control decisions, because usually control, as I mentioned before, create things like monopolies, right? Create things like concentration of power, which historically is kind of like a pretty dangerous thing. So for the field to continue to evolve, we think it makes much more sense to be open, to work on these very important topics of biases, privacy, energy consumption today, and to work publicly for to be able for it.
Right, right, Clement. And you know, when we kind of think about Hugging Face's whole journey here, you've kind of come a long way since, you know, since the chatbot phase. I mean, how has the journey been for you personally? I mean, speaking with Julian, I could gauge that you both are highly, like, I don't know if even the word passionate does kind of justice to it, but you guys are really into what you're doing. I mean, what kind of drives this passion? I mean, what got you interested in ML and then Hugging Face, and you know, to go through this entire journey?
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. Julien and Thomas and I, the three co-founders, are really enjoying the journey all the way. For me, what's been really exciting in the past kind of like a year or two is the fact that we're starting to bring more and more people in the team. We went from like around 30 people like at the Series B, so like a little bit more than a year ago, to now we're over 120 people. Bringing in the team people like Dr. Margaret Mitchell that was one mentioning. We acquired a team called Gradio, which is like is becoming the most popular tool to do machine learning demos. So it's really exciting to work with them. Today we have someone joining called Giada, who has a PhD in philosophy, and is going to help us work on kind of like stronger philosophy basis for our ethical work. So just like bringing in the team so many interesting people, so many fun people to work with. It's been definitely like the highlight of the Hugging Face journey for me so far, and I'm excited to keep doing that in the future. Where obviously with this Series C, we'll keep hiring a lot of people in every single position you can think of, right? From like the science side to the business sides, and in the middle like the engineering product sides. And so I'm really excited about that, kind of like growing the team and having more and more fantastic people within the team, but also in the community in general, because we interact with the community so much that sometimes kind of like the frontier between who's part of the team and who's part of the community gets a little bit blurry.
I think one of such projects was the DALI mini project. Now, I spoke with Julian, and when I confronted him with the question that DALI was given to a focus group due to a lot of concerns, but the open source project that's available at Hugging Face kind of makes it available for everyone. How are you kind of dealing with the hazards that come with DALI?
So there are a couple of different things, right? First, what we're seeing with machine learning is that education and communication around the challenges, the limitations, and the capabilities of your models are very important. That's why we probably like the biggest repository in the world of what is called model cards, which have been pioneered by Dr. Margaret Mitchell and others, which are kind of like a standard way for researchers to communicate about what their models can and can't do, for them to be used correctly when they are used, right? So that's one thing, kind of like education, communication about your models. Then the second important one is accountability, right? By releasing these models, you allow and empower the community to look at what they do and be able to control and get people who are using these models the wrong way accountable. And it can be by using the media, for example, ecosystem to communicate about wrong usage of these models. It can be by creating tools to reduce the ability to use these models in the wrong context. It can be with many other ways that we don't anticipate yet, because the ecosystem is going to work on this and find innovative solutions to this problem. But what we've seen is that, again, releasing for everyone to be able to look at them, build accountability tools, and ultimately build regulations, because at some point also the public organizations will need to do regulation, right? And for them to do regulation, they need to understand, right? So if you don't open source it, if you don't share it, they basically never understand and never be able to regulate it. So this is whole part of the typical journey of science, right? It's always been like that, right? Science is shared publicly, is built collaboratively. That's the only way for it to be built responsibly. Because the other alternative to that is to keep science also to a handful of organizations. And that could be, big nations, right? Including Russia, including others, and only to big private organizations. But that's usually much more dangerous, because again, it creates power imbalance, it creates monopolies, It removes the ability to make them accountable. And so that's why science has always been built around openness, about collaborativeness. Because if you think about long term, that's the only way to have something that is safe, healthy for everyone, and for human being and for the humanity.
Mhm. Well said, Clement. And this kind of brings me to the overall vision that you have for Hugging Face. You aspire to not only promote good ML, but to become the GitHub for machine learning. How do you plan on kind of achieving this?
So what's interesting is that you see more and more that, as I was saying, machine learning is becoming the default way of building technology. And the previous kind of like wave, software, or Andrej Karpathy said software 1.0, software 2.0. Software 1.0, GitHub kind of like became this tool for easier hosting of your code, easier collaboration, easier sharing with the whole community of your code. And we've been kind of like a similar platform, but for machine learning artifacts, right? So data sets, models. And what we're seeing is that it makes collaboration much easier within companies, for example, between data science teams and product teams, within the whole field, between scientists who are sharing models and sometimes practitioners. It creates more transparency, and it makes it easier, because at the end of the day, machine learning is still something that is hard to do, right? So what we've seen is that if you make it easier, if you make it an order of magnitude easier, like what we believe the Hugging Face platform does, people are going to use that, and it's going to be useful for them. That's probably why we have over 10,000 companies using us now.
Mhm. Well said. Well said.
And what's interesting on this topic of the platform is that for the past year and a half, what we've seen is from having majority of NLP models, right? So machine learning that applies to text. We're starting now to see more and more speech models, so like audio models. We're starting to see more and more computer vision models for things like image segmentation, object classification, self-driving cars stuff. We're starting to see more and more reinforcement learning agents on the hub. We're starting to see more and more biology, chemistry, time series models. So it's really interesting to see the Hugging Face hub starting to go from only NLP to this kind of like very general machine learning platform. Partly because obviously transformers, right? So the architecture that has powered most of the revolution in NLP, transformer models are starting to beat the state of the art for all the other machine learning domains, right? So fueled by that, it's really exciting to see all these new domains seeing more and more adoption on the Hugging Face platform.
Right, right, Clement. And when it comes to machine learning in general, you've been very vocal about your opinions on Twitter as to what can be anticipated. And I mean, in a very recent post of yours itself, you have made it clear that we are nowhere near, say, singularity. So, what's your opinion on AGI? When can we achieve it? What are the biggest challenges we face right now? And what do you say to all those people who have a really bad opinion on AGI in general?
I mean, what's interesting when you think about long term, middle term, short term, sometimes you can get so obsessed by the very long term that you forget about the short term, and that's something we want to avoid at Hugging Face, and for the field in general, because we feel like a lot of people are so focused on what they call AGI, on this kind of like doomsday scenario of like some sort of Terminator being built, that they don't really focus on the short-term challenges that we have, which in my opinion are very important, like biases, again, like by privacy, by power distribution versus power and balance. And so that's something that it's important to me personally, is to make sure that we always start by solving today's challenges, instead of focusing on something theoretical that, in my opinion, could happen in 50, 100 years. We have enough problems to solve today, and that's where, in my opinion, we should focus most of our efforts. There are many more things to be done, many pieces to the puzzle that are missing for AGI. It's not going to be just by simply scale the compute that you're going to get to AGI. And so let's find the right balance, especially in public conversations, between this question, but also solving today's problems, today's challenges, and making sure that machine learning is a positive development for people today. I think that's kind of like a healthy way to look at the evolution of our field.
Absolutely, Clement. Absolutely. I think we are down to the last 5 minutes. So we have something called a rapid fire round. And this is just to get to know Clement and not the CEO of Hugging Face. So these are pretty personal questions and quick ones. So if not for machine learning or, the entire tech domain, what would you be doing?
I might be working on philosophy. A big passion of me outside of work is philosophy. So hopefully could have worked on that if it wasn't on machine learning.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what was your first job like?
My dad had a small garden tools shop back in France, north of France. So I literally did any single job there, from kind of like answering the phone, doing the stamps on kind of like the commercial magazines, to cleaning the shop, trying to repair some of the low mowers and tractors and things like that. So I probably did 20 different jobs there, from age 10 to 18. That was really cool. That was like really interesting to do basically whatever was needed. Each time there was someone maybe leaving for a couple of weeks of vacation, I would kind of like do what was needed to help there.
Mm-hmm. Right. And my last question: what keeps you up at night?
I'm really excited about how to make machine learning more value driven, right? That's something I think about a lot. And so I'm excited to work on that even more in the coming months and coming years with Hugging Face.
Now, I mean, what I meant to ask is, what would you define as the holy grail of machine learning?
I don't think there's a holy grail really of machine learning. It's more kind of like a progressive, iterative process, just to make it positive. I was talking a bit about philosophy, but I'm a big fan of a book called The Myth of Sisyphus, which is like this myth of this guy kind of like climbing a mountain, pushing a rock, and each time he gets to the top, the rocks kind of like fall back and he has to start again, right? And the last words of the book is, you have to imagine Sisyphus happy, because what makes him happy is to push the rock much more than reaching the top. And so that's a philosophy I apply to myself too. So not looking so much for something at the end, but more like enjoying the journey and enjoying like the daily progress.
Perfect, Clement. Perfect. And I think with that, I have everything I need from you. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you guys.
Thanks so much. It was fun.
Thank you.